There's a bit more to the Steam Deck OLED than just the upgraded screen. Let's find out how the battery, fan noise, speakers, screen, and more stack up between the LCD Steam Deck, the 512GB OLED Steam Deck, and the Ally. As you can see here, the battery test is running at 50x speed in the background. I ran this test for a little over an hour and I capped both the Steam Decks at the bottom to 45 FPS. On the Ally, it'll still eat the same watts regardless of the frame rate, so I limited the TDP on the Ally until it was close to 45 FPS, which was 10 watts. Both the Ally and the OLED started at 97% battery, with the LCD Steam Deck at the bottom left starting at 95%. And here on Skyrim, one thing that surprised me the most was how close the battery life is between the LCD Steam Deck and the Ally. They're basically neck and neck. Then the next surprise is the OLED is absolutely crushing this test, getting almost double the battery life of the other two. And after looking at the displays, the OLED is a bit brighter than both the Ally and the regular Steam Deck, so it would have slightly longer battery life than we're seeing here. And here, wrapping up the test, you can see we're at about 50% on the Ally, 49% at the bottom left on the LCD Steam Deck, and then 70% on the OLED with 2 hours and 50 minutes remaining. Next, I could not believe the number I was seeing here in Stardew Valley for battery life. While it is a much less demanding game, I have the brightness cranked up to at least 70% here, and I'm seeing over 9.5 hours at 90% battery, so a good 10 plus hours playing Stardew Valley. Then on Horizon 5, using medium settings at 800p, we're seeing around 3 hours of battery life at 84%. This is with a 45 FPS cap on, but the experience is still great. Last up for the battery test, and we have Subnautica on medium settings running a 45 FPS cap as well. And here we're seeing around 2.5 hours left at only 65% battery. I decided to knock it all the way down to 30 Hz just to see what kind of battery life improvement we get. And it went all the way up to 3 hours and 15 minutes of battery at 65%. This feels like a Nintendo Switch now, possibly even better in the battery department, especially when playing at a capped 30 frames per second. Now you might be wondering why I'm using a 45 FPS cap. Well, on the new OLED, when you're at 45 FPS, the screen stays at 90 Hz. This makes it so when you back out of a game or need to open up settings, you're not seeing it flash black as it changes the refresh rate. Even at 30 FPS, it also stays at that 90 Hz refresh rate. You can see here as I adjust it to some other value besides 45, it flashes. Then as I back out of a game or pull up a menu, it's having to readjust the display to 90 Hz and then back to its set value that you had in the game when you go back into the game. So I personally found 45 FPS to be the sweet spot for most things. Then in faster paced titles and driving games, I'll sometimes knock it to 50 Hz or even 60 Hz, as it flashing to a black screen for a second isn't a huge deal. Next, we have the responsiveness when navigating around, and I was pleasantly surprised at how snappy it felt. It's definitely closer to the Ally than it is the LCD Steam Deck. Here you can see on the OLED, as I swipe up and down quickly, there's just a short delay. Now take a look at the LCD model as I do this, and you will see a pretty big difference where it's lagging behind quite a bit. For reference, here is the Ally running at 120 Hz, and you can see it's also snappy like the OLED. This makes it so you have a touch screen that you'll enjoy using. Even typing on the keyboard feels a lot more fluid, as well as using the trackpad to navigate. And overall, it just improves the experience that much more. It's also 29 grams lighter, which I didn't think much of until I picked up the LCD Steam Deck after using the OLED model. It's pretty amazing that Valve has managed to put a bigger screen and bigger battery in it while reducing the weight. Now let's jump into the speaker test. For this, all devices are turned up to 100% and no processing has been done to the mic, so it's just the raw audio. We have the OLED Steam Deck, the LCD Steam Deck, and the Ally that we'll be comparing. So let's go ahead and have a listen between all of those. I personally feel like the LCD Steam Deck has slightly more bass to it, while the OLED model was a bit brighter sounding with less bass. The Ally to me still sounds quite a bit better than both, but the Ally has some of the best speakers I've ever heard on a handheld. If I had to choose one between the Steam Decks, I would say I slightly prefer the OLED just for that extra clarity. Now on to fan noise. For all the tests in this video, both systems are on SteamOS version 3.5.7, and I feel like Valve improved the fan curve on the LCD model, as to me it seemed a lot quieter than before when I was playing games. Here I've run Skyrim for a few minutes at 60 FPS and have a listen to the LCD fan. Now have a listen to the OLED fan. And then here's the Ally at 15 watts. And you can hear on the LCD model that the fan slightly fluctuates, which is a bit irritating. I'd rather just have it run louder and not fluctuate. On the OLED, I found it's usually quieter for longer when setting a 45 FPS cap. In real world use, I haven't noticed the fans at all on the OLED. Now onto the display, and the OLED is amazing. I do have the glossy screen model and I don't have an etched model to compare it to. I think Retro Game Core had a great take on the two, and I'll have a link to his video in the description. As you can see here, when all the devices are at 100% brightness, it's a night and day difference. We have the OLED in the middle, the Ally up top, and the LCD model at the bottom. The colors really pop on the OLED, and viewing it at an angle, it still looks great. I love the Nintendo Switch's OLED screen, and it almost feels like it was taken out of the Switch and plopped into the Steam Deck, which is a good thing. And then we have Quick Resume, which is one of the best features of having SteamOS and the Steam Deck specifically. I've put the device in sleep here while playing Forza Horizon 5. As I hit the button, it's around 2 seconds for the screen to come back on, and I can pick up right where I left off. I love being able to hit a button to put it in sleep, and then knowing the next day the battery won't be dead, and knowing if I throw it into a case, it's not going to turn itself back on, and that when I push the button within just a couple seconds, I'll be able to get right back into whatever game I was playing. Also, the back buttons and trackpads are great to have. SteamOS makes them even more useful with all the shortcuts and mappings you can set up. Even the trackpads can be set up as a virtual menu to navigate a bunch of shortcuts with custom icons. This helps a lot when playing games that use keyboard and mouse controls, as you can map a bunch of those custom hotkeys to that virtual menu on the trackpad. And one small thing I wanted to mention is the joysticks make a slight pop sound every time you move them. This is the same thing that the Nintendo Switch Pro controller does, and some people might find it annoying. It's very minor, but I immediately noticed it myself. Overall, the OLED Steam Deck feels like a new device that improves upon the first generation in just about every way. It's so good now that I'm planning on using it as my primary gaming device for a while. There are other issues with SteamOS like third-party launchers, anti-cheat issues, and other oddball problems, but this video is more focused on the changes from the LCD model and what to expect if you're already using SteamOS. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.